Hey guys, welcome back to another tying video with Old Florida. My name is Mike. Today we're going to be tying an ultimate worm. This is a super effective bass pattern. So the first thing we're going to do is take our hook, throw that in the vise, hook point up, secure that there. We're going to take our thread and we're going to start it right behind the eye of that hook. And we're going to lay a nice little thread base wrapping down and back up to the middle of that. So you do get a pack of mop chenille. When you do get it, it comes kind of in a little spool like that. There's 60 inches in that spool. I cut off 4 15-inch pieces. That gives just enough to make 4 flies and enough to work with for the fly. So I got my piece right here, 15 inches long. I'm going to take that, throw it around 6 inches out the back. I'm going to take my fingers, I'm going to do a pinch wrap right in the middle of that little piece that we have from the top of that Texas worm hook. I'm going to take my thread and I'm going to secure that right on the top of the shank of the hook. I'm going to wrap back. You do have to just move that mop chenille out of the way while you tie. And then once you got that, I'm going to jump my thread ahead of that and move it all the way forward while pulling everything back. Just put a couple wraps there. So you have a longer piece and then you have a shorter piece. The shorter piece is going to be your tail. I'm going to talk about palmering. So palmering is just wrapping one material around another material, or the shank of the hook. So I'm going to pinch this back piece and see how that hook bend flexes a little bit as I pull this back piece. That's going to be important throughout the whole fly. But I'm going to hold this between my pointer and thumb. I'm going to take this top longer piece and I'm just going to start wrapping that around that standing tail piece, just making a tight little twist. I'm always holding tension on that tail piece. Nice tight wraps. Once you get to the bend of the hook, I'm going to make a Y right here, and I'm going to place that Y underneath. I'm going to go one more wrap just so I have enough. Right underneath, if you could see that, right there. I'm going to keep pinching that tail. I'm going to work my thread around while holding tension on that tail right there. See how that hook bends just a little bit? I'm going to still wrap that material, capturing that wire of that hook. I'm going to continue to wrap that nice tight wraps while holding that tail around. I'm going to go back maybe an inch or so. Once we have that, I'm going to pinch down nice and tight right there. And now I'm going to wrap back up. I'm going to pinch right where I have that. I'm going to wrap back up toward the eye of the hook. Nice tight wraps while holding that tail still. This is an important step right here. When you get to that little bend of the hook, I want you to slide that material down so it exposes the hook point. Give one nice tight wrap right behind the bend of the hook, and then we're going to pass it through in between the mop chenille and the hook bend, and then we're going to come back right tight against that hook, right tight against that hook. So we basically just captured behind and in front of that wire of the hook. With that still being down, I'm going to poke my mop chenille through that little gap in between, and I'm still just going to keep wrapping back up that material. Sorry for my finger being in the way. It's kind of the only way to poke it through there. Nice tight touching wraps for the most part. They don't have to be super tight, but the closer usually the better. It makes the fly a little bit more durable. Poke that all the way through. We're going to wrap right over that head where we made. And then now once you get to that little zig in the head of the worm hook, we're going to start pulling that material backwards. Really tight backwards. Going to make a nice palmered head all the way to the eye of the hook. Once we have that there, I'm going to pull down. I'm going to take my thread, do a wrap behind it so we captured that material. Do another 2 wraps really nice and tight. I'm going to pull that tag backwards and do 2 more wraps nice and tight so we secured that little tag piece. Just going to go ahead and trim that little tag out of there. Nice tight little cut. Now I could come in here, take my thread, and I'm going to whip finish. I'm going to pull everything back while I whip finish. I'm going to do 2 sets of 3. Really Nice tight wraps. Do a nice little whip finish there. And then we could trim our thread out. So that's pretty much the done tying portion of the fly. There are a couple things I would like to mention. So if you look at this fly, when I push on it, you can kind of see how it jumps down. This is just about the perfect amount of tension. If you do mess up the tension when wrapping while pulling that tail back, you can adjust the tension of this fly by either pushing the hook, bending the hook in a little bit, which makes it a little bit looser, or you can actually bend the hook out just a little bit, which makes it a little bit tighter. Ideally, you want that to be just enough where while you're casting, it doesn't fall down or foul up. But on the contrary, if you do it too tight, you'll start missing fish because this inner portion is too tight and it won't slide down when a fish takes it. So there's a fine line between too tight and not tight enough. This fly has great movement. It's just a all-around great bass pattern. You do have to burn the tail, I actually like to burn the tail and add a little bit of epoxy. So I'll come in here, I'll burn this little tag end just so it don't unravel. Kind of nice little burn right there. And then what I actually like to do is add a little epoxy right on that tag end just to give it a little weight on the tail. So when you have the weight on the tail, as you strip this fly through the water, that little weight kind of wiggles that tail a little bit more. One little pro tip too, I'll take a lighter and I'll just lightly go over this. And what that does, what I found it does quite a bit, is actually helps the fly from getting waterlogged a little bit. So it's easier to cast and it still has great movement. When you burn it like this though, be very careful not to do too much. I actually almost like adding a profile to this fly while burning it. So you can kind of see it makes that fly a little bit more, little wormy look, fatter in the head, skinnier to the tail. That fly is just a little bit long for me. I'm gonna trim this one a little bit shorter. The cool thing is on the water, if you tie it super long and you bring a lighter with you, you can actually just trim it out on the water, depending if you want a larger or smaller fly. This is just a super easy, super effective bass fly. You can tie it in a ton of different colors. Tan, brown, my favorite black and purple. Just an all-around great bass fly, super easy to tie. You can load the box of them. They're really not that bad to throw. They don't get super heavy, especially if you burn the fly a little bit. I feel like it prevents that water from really like seeping into the material. I like fishing it with strip paws, letting it fall, almost like a Senko or a stick bait in bass fishing, which is known to be probably one of the most effective bass patterns. So go ahead and give that a try. Hope you liked the video today. As always, we hope to see you guys out on the water.